YouTube, my name is Rachel Mayo. Welcome to my channel and thank you for being here. I'm going to be discussing how the full moon in Aries is going to affect you according to your ascendant sign. This full moon is happening on October 9th at 4:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is New York time. Check for your own location in order to get the correct ascendant. If you like the content of this video, please hit like, share, and subscribe. And yes, I'm still running the contest for a free 30-minute solar return reading with me over Zoom or Skype. So if you want to be a part of this competition, hit subscribe. Make sure your subscription is visible because I will look for your name in my analytics. And this is how I know that you've subscribed. Share this video and like this video, and also leave me a comment in the comment section of this video saying free solar. You can also leave a comment telling me how this full moon in Aries is aspecting you. I answer your questions promptly. Asteroid Chiron is conjunct this lunation. Chiron is here to help us heal our wounds. However, Chiron wounds can never be completely healed. So if you've tried everything, you're frustrated, you're about to give up, perhaps it is time to surrender. There is nothing else left to do to heal your wounds. It's time to accept your wounds, surrender to your wounds, and heal. We all have a Chiron wound somewhere in our charts. We've all been wounded somewhere along the journey of life. So let go of your past hurts so that you can move into your future, or you'll forever stay in victim mode. So this full moon can be quite painful. Just make sure you have your support system around, and also keep in mind that they're probably also tending to their own Chiron wounds. Also keep in mind that you're probably feeling the energy of the solar eclipse in Scorpio that's happening on the 25th of October. The energy of an eclipse starts to present itself a month before it happens or a month after. So we're already past that point. So whatever energies we're feeling at this lunation are probably part of the solar eclipse. So it will feel quite intense and really emotional for some. The Taurus lunar eclipse is happening on the 8th of November. So by the 8th of October, we're also already feeling the effects of the Taurus lunar eclipse. Another thing to remember is that Pluto, the ruler of the transiting south node, ruler of Scorpio, just stationed direct a day before this lunation. Now, when an outer planet changes direction, we tend to feel its power, we tend to feel its energy very intensely. Pluto is going to stay at the same degree for about a month. So it's going to be stationary direct at around 26 degrees of Capricorn. Pluto in Capricorn squares Libra. It also squares the sign of Aries. However, at this lunation, Pluto is not touching the degrees of this full moon. So we're not going to really feel the energy of Pluto that intensely as far as this lunation is concerned. But simply because he is the ruler of the south node and he's stationing direct a day before the Aries full moon. October and November are going to be the most transformative months of 2022. So fasten your seatbelt, it's going to get bumpy. This full moon is asking us to initiate something assertively, decisively, despite our Chiron wounds. It's time to go for it and just do it. Venus, the planet of love and relationships and finances, is highly active under this full moon. So we may see a lot of healing energy triggered by our connections to others. Venus is transiting the sign of Libra and is conjunct the sun. Venus is about to be combust a few days after this lunation. So this means that Venus doesn't have her usual power, even though she's dominant in the sign of Libra. So this is really going to affect our relationships, our finances. It's going to affect mostly females or the feminine energy in our chart. The Libra-Aries axis is the axis of relationships in the zodiac. So if there is an imbalance in your relationships or business agreements, partnerships, this is the time for you to use this positive energy to heal your relationships. So if there is an imbalance in your relationships, this is your chance to compromise, negotiate, talk about it in order for you to progress your relationship to the next level. So one thing to really think about at this full moon is, where are you being selfish and self-centered? Remember, in the sign of Aries, we want to be first and we always put ourselves first. This lunation is asking you to balance things and think about the other person in the relationship. What are their needs? October 22nd is the Venus star point, as Venus aligns with the Sun. Venus becoming basically combust. Venus basically becoming combust. This aspect is known as the Venus star point. This is when Venus shifts from a morning star to an evening star. Venus is not going to be visible until about 2nd of December this year. So Venus as a morning star, the love radiates outwards. But Venus as an evening star, her love radiates within. This is all about self-love. So when Venus is an evening star, it's very likely that you don't care what people think about your choices. You'll care more about what you love and what truly makes you happy. So Venus here can be a bit more bitchy and less of a people pleaser, which can be experienced as a positive aspect, because Venus in Libra is always worried about what the other person is feeling. It's time to worry about yourself. Do what makes you happy. Do what is going to put you in the best position so that your future is more secure. So at this lunation, we may be wanting love and intimacy, but with Venus's position, with Venus being combust and Venus being opposite the moon, what we want, what we're feeling for, is going to be harder to achieve because of these aspects. However, there is some room and hope for healing. Later in the month, on the 17th of October, the Sun is going to conjunct the fixed star Spica. This is a lucky fixed star. And this conjunction is going to trine Mars in Gemini. And then on the next day, on the 18th, Venus, the benefic, is also going to conjunct this star and also trine Mars. So the Sun and Venus are both going to separately conjunct the lucky fixed star Spica at 23 degrees of Libra, and also trine Mars, who's also around 24 degrees of Gemini, and trine Saturn, who is currently transiting in the sign of Aquarius at around 18 degrees of Aquarius. This is going to be energy that is locked in a tight circuit. This is very powerful. And at around the time of the solar eclipse in Scorpio, Mercury is also going to conjunct the lucky fixed star Spica. So there is a story unfolding here. Check to see if you have anything at 23 degrees of Libra. Whatever you have there is going to be a part of this grand air trine. This grand air trine will be active for most of October. This energy will influence our thought process, our values, and what brings us stability. What brings stability in our life. Mars, the ruler of this lunation, is currently transiting the sign of Gemini. He is stationary retrograde, so this makes him very, very powerful at this lunation. He is going to go retrograde at the end of the month, on the 30th of October. Will turn direct on the 12th of January. I made a video on Mars in Gemini, so if you haven't watched that video, I highly suggest that you go and watch it, because Mars is going to be in the sign of Gemini for about 7 months or 8 months altogether. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So even though this is a full moon and is all about culminations and endings, this full moon may also have the energy of new beginnings. So something may come to an end, culmination, or fruition, and you may have to begin something else. And you may have to begin or initiate something else right away. Aries is the sign of initiations. There is a very heavy T-square at the time of this lunation, because Mercury is opposing Neptune and they're both square to Mars. This T-square is going to push Mars into taking action. Keep in mind that the opposition of Mercury and Neptune can bring some type of delusionment and deception. With the square from Mars to Neptune, it could bring about energy of fake news and just plain outright deceit. So be careful how you take action with the information that you have. You may want to give Mars a chance to reevaluate some of this information while he's going retrograde. So as you can see, October is the month where the energy starts to move. On October 2nd, Mercury went direct. On October 8th, Pluto also went direct. And Saturn is also going to go direct on the 23rd of October, right before the solar eclipse in Scorpio. I think on the same day, the Sun also goes into Scorpio and Venus enters Scorpio. Now Venus has entered the underworld. So the direct movement of these planets is very powerful and positive. If you haven't watched my video on the solar eclipse in Scorpio, I highly suggest that you go and watch that video. The solar eclipse is actually better than the lunar eclipse. So watch it so that you can understand how the energies are transpiring in your own life and perhaps even explain what you're feeling now. So whatever has been feeling stagnant in your Capricorn and Aquarius house is going to get some forward movement this month. Also keep in mind that Pluto in Capricorn and Saturn in Aquarius are completing their transits in these signs early March next year. So this means that this is the last time they're going to retrograde in these signs this year. Although Pluto is going to retrograde back into Capricorn sometime next year. Whichever way you look at it, Saturn and Pluto are closing major karma in the Aquarius and Capricorn houses because they will not return for a very long time. Saturn has a 29-year cycle around the zodiac, so he will be back after 29 years. However, Pluto is not coming back in this lifetime unless we all become vampires. Because Pluto has a 248-year orb around the zodiac. So major karmic closing is happening this year. So whatever happens at this full moon, it's important to keep in mind that this is the last full moon before the eclipses begin. So whatever was unresolved at the Libra new moon will be resolved by the eclipses. These past two lunations are both ruled by the rulers of the transiting north and south node in the sign of Taurus and Scorpio. Venus and Mars are also the rulers of the upcoming eclipses, the solar eclipse in Scorpio and the lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus. So as you can see, there is a theme of relationships. So as you can see, there is a theme of love, relationships, and finances. Aries and Libra is the axis of you and the other, and the Taurus and the Scorpio axis is the house of our earned money and the house of other people's money. As you can see, there is an ongoing theme here, and it's all about to come to a crescendo. Full moon is a perfect triangle configuration known as a grand trine, a grand air trine, activated by the Sun, Saturn, and Mars. This grand air trine is a closed circuit of energy in the air signs. This formation will make energy of communication flow harmoniously. So it's really time for you to bring your concerns up for discussion. Saturn at around 18 degrees of Aquarius is trining the Sun in Libra and sextile the Moon in Aries, bringing concrete solutions and stability to the Aries full moon. So if you're willing to address your wounds, your issues, and you're willing to talk about this with your partner, then there is hope for healing and compromise. This grand air trine is the answer. So we should use this energy to heal ourselves and our relationship. This is very positive energy. The people who are going to be affected the most by this lunation are the cardinal signs. The cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And that's because they'll be experiencing the challenging aspect of a square or an opposition to this, or a square or an opposition to the lunation. And if you have anything at 16 degrees of the cardinal signs, you're also going to experience this lunation intensely, because that is essentially the degree that is activated by this full moon. The fire signs will have a better experience with this lunation simply because the fire signs are going to trine this full moon. The fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. The air signs are going to benefit the most from this full moon because of the air grand trine that I keep talking about. This grand air trine is going to be in effect for most of the month. The air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Mars is activated at this lunation because he rules the Aries full moon. So if your solar return for the year has an Aries or Scorpio ascendant, the Mars has been activated. So this means that your solar return ascendant is in Aries or Scorpio. Mars is being activated. If you were born on or around the 9th of October, a few days before or a few days after, you're going to feel this lunation very personally, because you're going to have the energy of this Aries full moon somewhere you're going to have this Aries full moon in your solar return chart. There will be a house, the Aries house, that's going to be highly activated during the solar year. This is the area where you're going to have culmination. This is the area where you're going to have major culminations and endings, and perhaps some strong initiation. So if this is your solar return, it's going to be really intense. It's going to be a bumpy year. I suggest you book a solar return reading with me at rachel-mayo.com. So if you have Chiron conjunct the moon in your natal chart, this could mean that you have issues, wounds, or pain concerning early childhood nurturing. Perhaps your mother wasn't around, perhaps she left. In other situations, she could have been dealing with her own issues. Perhaps she was sick and wasn't able to care for you. This means that you could have problems expressing your emotions, expressing love, nurturing. This is your Chiron wound. Aries is the first house of the zodiac. Aries is ruled by the warrior god Mars. This is where we always want to be first, wherever Aries falls in your natal birth chart. Aries is a passionate sign, motivated, a self-starter, and a go-getter. Aries can be really good at initiations, but Aries is not really good at finishing what he started. Aries is a sign of ego, big ego, of course not bigger than Leo, but having a Chiron wound in this house can be very painful. Aries is the first house of the zodiac. It is the ascendant of the chart. Having a Chiron wound here can be physical. It can be something that is visible to the rest of the world. It could be an injury to the head, or perhaps even a facial scar. In other extremes, it could actually be a disfigurement somewhere on the body. If Chiron is in your 4th house, you could have some type of pain when it comes to your mother, your family, your ancestry. Perhaps there's some deep family secrets. Perhaps secrets of incest, or just something that is very shameful. Chiron in the 4th house is similar to having Chiron conjunct the moon. Chiron in the 7th house could be experienced as having issues forming bonds with others in partnerships and commitment. This could be because a partner perhaps cheated on you and you actually caught them in the act, and that image has been imprinted in your brain and you just can't trust anyone. Chiron in the 10th house could have to do with a wound or pain, injury concerning your status or standing in society. Usually this injury comes about as a result of perhaps the actions of your father. It could be that your father is a known criminal, went to jail, and everybody knows about this. And it's tied to your personality and standing in society. I'd like to say a big thank you for all the people that booked a reading with me. I enjoyed reading you, and I would love to read you again. So if you haven't booked a reading with me for the solar this is an excellent time for you to take advantage of the special that I'm running. $60 special reading for the eclipses. I would like to also thank everybody that commented and everybody that took part in this competition. Your subscriptions, your shares, your likes all help my channel grow. I would really like to see 10,000 subscribers soon. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. And as I promised, I said I was going to announce the winners for the free solar return reading at the Aries full moon video. Well, here we are. I selected 3 people simply because this is the first time I'm doing this competition. I would like to encourage all of you to be a part of this because I'm going to be running this again next month. And if I get a lot more people commenting, liking and sharing and subscribing to my channel, this will be an ongoing thing. So no worries if you don't get selected this time. You should still continue trying because I'll have more winners next month. So these are the winners: Debbie Reigate, The One, and Gabriela Georgesecu. I probably butchered one of the names, but if that's you, I suggest that you contact me immediately. You have 1 week to claim your free solar return chart reading. Aries, Ascendant, Sun or Moon. This full moon is happening in your first house. This is where you'll have major culminations and endings and perhaps some new beginnings. Aries, this is your full moon. We only have 1 full moon in the solar year. The first house is an angle house. When this angle is activated, it means that the opposite angle, the descendant, is activated. The descendant squares your MC and the ascendant squares your IC. So it means that you could have changes in any part of the chart because the angles are activated. If you've been wanting to change anything about your personality, your body, or perhaps how you're seen by others, this is an excellent time for you to go ahead, bravely make those changes and some initiations. If you're dealing with low self-esteem and insecurities about your body, the way you look, how you're aging, or maybe you don't feel so beautiful or handsome, if there are any wounds surrounding those issues, it's time for you to address them and perhaps find some healing. If it's something that can be fixed with plastic surgery or some Botox or some enhancement, this is the time that you're really thinking about doing it. And if you think that it's going to make you feel better about yourself, maybe it's something for you to explore. And since this is a relationship axis, some of you could have insecurities about how your partner sees you or how you present yourself to your partner. This is time for you to sit down and have a discussion about how this relationship is progressing, and perhaps tell your partner exactly how you feel about the way things are. Put everything on the table. Your partner probably wants to hear about it. And since Venus is transiting in Libra, your partnership sector, your partner might actually be more accommodating with your concerns. So Aries, if you haven't listened to the introduction of this video, I suggest that you go and listen to everything because this is your full moon after all. So all the information in the introduction really pertains to you. Your ruling planet Mars is highly activated at this lunation because he's stationary retrograde in the sign of Gemini and is going to be part of the Grand Air Trine. So you have a lot of saying power. So you have some power at this lunation. You have the power to make the changes that you want and make major initiations because Mars is essentially cooperating with the big dogs. He's speaking harmoniously with Saturn. He's speaking harmoniously with the luminary, the sun. And all this energy is flowing in a closed circuit of a grand air trine. So the air signs is where the positivity is. Take advantage of this energy and end the things which are not making you feel good about yourself. End the things which are no longer useful. After all, the solar eclipse in Scorpio is pretty much going to eliminate whatever is dead, stagnant, whatever has just been sitting there in our life. This is the time for you to really look around yourself, look at your habits, look at what you're keeping around you, look at the relationships that you're just keeping around you just because they're there. Are they truly useful? Are they really bringing anything to the table? Is this what you want to take into your future? Taurus, Ascendant, Sun or Moon. This lunation is happening in your 12th house. This is the area where you'll have endings and culminations and perhaps some new beginnings. Taurus, the 12th house is a hidden house. This is the house behind our ascendant. So this is a dark room where we cannot see what's going on. This is why it's called the house of our hidden enemies, because sometimes we have people that don't wish us well, and we may not know who those people are until they present themselves. The 12th house is also the area of self-sabotage. So if you have issues with self-sabotage, like you have hidden affairs, unhealthy affairs, perhaps you're dating a married man, a married woman, or perhaps or it could be that you have problems with addiction, alcoholism, overeating, anything that you do behind closed doors that you really know is not good for you. All these issues are going to be brought up for you to examine and perhaps try to evaluate why you're self-sabotaging. What is the source of the pain? Why are you using drugs or alcohol to self-medicate? Some people could come to the realization that they can no longer self-medicate, they cannot heal themselves, and it's time to seek real help. Some of you will decide to go into rehab at this time, and that is a very positive way of using this energy. The 12th house also rules over our generational karma, and generational karma is karma that you have inherited simply because you were born into a certain family and you carry a certain last name. The pain and the wounds surrounding that karma is going to be brought up at this lunation for you to finally deal with. So this full moon could be a very sad and emotional one for Tauruses. This is the time to have your friends and your support system around. Your ruling planet Venus, the ruler of the transiting North Node, is a big part of this lunation as it's opposing the moon in Aries. And Venus is also traveling conjunct the sun. Taurus, if you haven't listened to the beginning of this video, I suggest you go back and listen to the whole introduction, because your ruling planet is highly active at this lunation. So you're going to want to hear exactly what Venus is doing. Take that information and see how it fits into your chart. And having all this energy going on in your 12th house could actually make you very sleepless, or you could be getting some wild dreams, or perhaps some messages from the other side, because all these things are ruled under the 12th house, including intuition and psychic ability. Taurus, you're a fixed sign. All the fixed signs have been going through a lot this year, and we're about to experience some more with the solar eclipse in Scorpio, and of course the grand finale of the Taurus lunar eclipse that's happening next month. This is an excellent time for you to talk to someone, go into therapy, or get a reading. All these things fall under the 12th house. Have somebody help you see in the dark, because this is an area where you're blind. We cannot see what's behind us. We cannot see what's going on in the 12th house. Excellent time for you to consult a psychic, a medium, an astrologer. You can always book me at rachel-mayo.com. Really, a lot is going to be happening towards the end of the year. Your whole life might be turned upside down, and it could be negatively or positively. It all depends on how these eclipses are aspecting your own natal birth chart. Gemini, ascendant, sun, or moon. This full moon is happening in your 11th house. This is where you'll have major endings, culminations, and perhaps some new beginnings. The 11th house is a happy house. This is the house where we get accolades, promotions. It's essentially the house that rewards the work that we did in the 10th house. So perhaps if you've been working on some type of healing in the groups that you belong to, with your friends, with your aunts and uncles and elder sibling, this is the time that you're going to realize, this is the time that the pain or wounding is going to come up for you to deal with. And some of you may decide to end some friendships and remove yourself from certain groups or social media platforms. On the other hand, some of you could finally have the courage and bravery to join a club that was intimidating or difficult to get into, or perhaps you could begin a very healing or perhaps you could begin a very healing friendship. And if there's been issues in that, and if there's been issues there, it is time for you to address those issues and perhaps find a resolution and heal those relationships. For some of you, it could be issues surrounding your hopes, dreams, and wishes. Perhaps at this time, you may come to a realization that some of these hopes and wishes are probably something you're not going to be able to accomplish this lifetime because of certain things that you lack. Certain things that you need and don't have in order to accomplish those wishes. It might be time for you to get realistic, live in the now, and let the fantasies go. The ruling planet Mercury is not directly influencing this lunation. However, he's in a deep conversation with Pluto. Mercury just went direct. So perhaps you've been investigating, you've been a detective, you've been trying to uncover certain hidden information. And at the time of this lunation, you are going to be armed with this information. Mercury is dominant in the sign of Virgo because she rules that sign. Mercury will soon be entering the sign of Libra, and later on Mercury is also going to have a chance to conjunct the lucky fixed star Spica and become a part of this grand air trine that is going on between the sign of Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And remember, you are, after all, hosting the ruler of this lunation, Mars, who is stationary retrograde in your sign. Gemini, you have a lot of saying power at the time of this lunation. It's time for you to speak up, say what you need to say. It might hurt some people, but it's something that you've been holding on and perhaps not wanting to say for a very long time. It's time for you to release whatever it is that you've discovered with your research and investigation. This is a positive full moon for you, Gemini, simply because Gemini sextiles Aries. You're being given opportunities. This sextile is a harmonious energy that is given to us to use if we apply, that is given to us to benefit from if we apply effort and energy, and also looking out for opportunities. Cancer ascendant, sun or moon. This lunation is happening in your 10th house. This is where you'll have major endings and culminations, and perhaps a new beginning. The 10th house is the highest point of our chart. It is the MC. It's an angle house. So when this angle is activated, it also activates the opposing angle and also aspects the ascendant by a square, and also activates the descendant with another square. So whatever happens, whatever ends in your 10th house is going to be felt pretty much in your whole life. So whatever you're ending or beginning could be anything to do with any of the angles, since they're all activated at this lunation. The 10th house is the area of our standing in society. It is the area of our bosses, our authority figures, the government. So whenever there's an event at the MC, it is an event that will be witnessed and seen by everyone. So Cancer, if you've been working in a hostile environment because perhaps you had an argument, disagreement with your authority figures or perhaps your boss, this is the time that you're going to feel really insecure or really wounded about whatever was said to you or whatever was done to you. These issues are going to come up and they're going to feel very open and raw. This is time for you to address these issues, because if you don't address these issues, they will be dealt with at the time of the solar eclipse. That's coming up in a few weeks. So for those of you that have really been uncomfortable and can no longer bear it, this is the time that some of you will decide to leave your job. The 10th house and the 4th house are the parental axes. So perhaps some of you have been dealing with issues surrounding an illness with your parent. Unfortunately for some of you, this could be the time that your sick parents could transform into another existence. There could be an ending in that way. Of course, when a parent leaves the earth, it's a very, very painful experience. So some of you could essentially be dealing with those issues. And of course, when that happens, it becomes public information. However, some of you at this time may decide to initiate a career in healing, either in nursing or becoming a doctor. That's changing your status. Your ruling planet, the luminary, your ruling planet, the moon, the luminary, is always part of every lunation. So Cancer will always feel lunations very personally. This full moon might actually be very intense and emotional. And since the moon conjuncting Chiron could also bring up issues surrounding your fourth house, your mother, this full moon might actually be very, very sensitive for you, Cancer. And the other reason is because you square Aries and Libra. Squares tend to push us into action. So in the midst of whatever is going on, when you're feeling down and depressed or really highly emotional and sensitive, you will still be pushed into taking action. Cancer, if you haven't listened to the beginning of this video, I suggest that you go and listen to the whole introduction. There's a lot of information that you can use to see how it affects your chart personally. And if you're still not getting the message of this lunation, I suggest that you book a reading with me at rachel-mayo.com. Leo, Ascendant, Sun or Moon. This lunation is happening in your 9th house. This is the area where you'll have endings, culminations, and perhaps some new beginnings. The 9th house rules over the justice system. It rules over foreign lands, foreign people, foreign languages, education, professors, our gurus. It also rules our higher belief system. So perhaps some of you have inherited a higher belief system from your family or your father. So perhaps some of you have inherited a belief system that you no longer believe in as an adult. This is a time you might be questioning if you really want to continue believing in this belief system, if it is yours, if it's anything that's really going to do anything for your future. Perhaps you've been hiding your sexual orientation simply because you come from a family that is not tolerant to other sexual orientations. Perhaps this is the time that you're going to decide to drop that belief system because you've been hiding in the closet anyway. It may be time for you to come out and express to your parents or your family exactly who you are and what type of lifestyle you'd want to live openly. For others, it could be that you've been forced into a religion that you no longer really believe in. Is that really your own belief system, or have you just been forced to believe in it because it's what was handed down to you? And now perhaps you've found some other belief system. This might be time for you to separate yourself from that system and start believing in your own beliefs. Unfortunately, some of you could be dealing with issues surrounding abuse by an authority figure or somebody you looked up to, perhaps a priest, a professor, a guru, and these wounds are coming up, they're resurfacing. It might be time for you to deal with these issues or confront your abusers. Your ruling planet, the sun, the luminary, is always part of any lunation. So Leo is always going to feel lunations very intensely and personally. The sun is opposing Chiron, so that might be the sore spot, the issues that I'm talking about, the issues that you need to address. The sun conjunct Venus is positive energy, simply because Libra sextiles Leo. This is harmonious energy. This is energy that you can use if you apply yourself, you apply effort to get something done, and also be on the lookout for opportunities. With the sextile aspect, if you don't use this energy, it just dissipates. So Leo, if you haven't listened to the introduction of this video, I suggest that you go back and listen to the whole introduction, because the information in the introduction is information which is useful when evaluating your own natal birth chart. And if you'd like some guidance, please book me at rachel-mayo.com. Virgo, Ascendant, Sun or Moon. This lunation is happening in your 8th house. This is where you're going to have endings and culminations and perhaps some brand new beginnings. The 8th house is an intimate house. This is where we want to bond with another person. This is the house where we share resources. This is the house of sex, death, rebirth, and This is the house of sex, death, rebirth, and transformation. This is the area where we keep our secrets that we keep from others and secrets that we keep from ourselves. So having the moon and Chiron in that house, in the place where you don't want anybody to, in the house where you don't want anybody to put a light on, you could feel this lunation very personally and intensely, because it's going to bring up all your hidden issues that you've been suppressing, deep psychological issues, resentments, jealousies. All those things are going to be brought up at this lunation, and it's going to feel very, very intense. So if you or your partner has been keeping secrets from the other, this is the time that these secrets are probably going to be revealed at this time, because when the moon sits in a house, it lights up that house. So whatever is hidden is revealed. So you are probably going to be dealing with some major endings as a result of whatever is discovered or revealed at this lunation. After all, your ruling planet Mercury is in trine with Pluto in Capricorn and has been on a quest to dig deep and really investigate and find out what's really been going on. And perhaps at this lunation, you found out some things which are really not pretty, and things that you don't, and perhaps these are things that you don't want to address or deal with at this time. There's no running away from these issues, because once Pluto brings something to the surface, it's not going back down. You have to deal with it. Your ruling planet Mercury is eventually going to go into the sign of Libra and is going to conjunct the fixed star Spica around the time of the solar eclipse in Scorpio. That is a positive aspect, because it's going to trine your sister sign. It's going to trine Mars transiting your sister sign of Gemini, and then which will trine Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. So you're going to have a grand air trine of harmonious energy in those houses. So this is energy that you can actually use to your advantage. So if you haven't listened to the introduction of this video, I suggest you go back and listen to the whole introduction, because I do discuss the grand air trine. See how it relates to your own natal birth chart. And if you need some further guidance, I suggest that you book a reading with me at rachel-mayo.com. Libra ascendant, sun or moon. This full moon is happening in your 7th house. This is where you have major endings, culminations, and perhaps some new beginnings. The 7th house is an angle house. It is part of the relationship axis, because it's, after all, the descendant. So when this angle is activated, it activates the opposing angle, which is you, the ascendant, and then it also activates the MC with a square aspect. This is your standing in society, and the MC opposes your IC. So the changes, so whatever happens at this lunation could be felt in almost every part of your life. But mostly you're going to experience endings or culminations with your relationships, with your marriage, or partnerships, and any type of business agreements that you have with another person. So this could also include business. So you don't have to be in a marriage, relationship, or a business situation. This could just be endings. This could just be endings or culminations with whatever it is that you deal with in your environment. This lunation, the power is really with your partner, because this is where the moon is. This is the place where you're going to be feeling perhaps triggered and activated because of whatever it is that your partner is doing. So if there have been ongoing issues, hidden issues, or resentments that you have not wanted to deal with, have been suppressing, this is the time for you to really deal with them, because a light is being shown on these insecurities. If you're one of those people who has insecurities with partnerships, if you have your natal Chiron in the 7th house, is going to be activated at this lunation. So you will be dealing with old wounds surrounding your issues with commitment and marriage. So if the issues that are brought up at this lunation are too difficult to handle and there's no resolution, this is the time that this marriage, partnership, or business arrangement could come to an end. And because Chiron is involved, there will be some really hurt feelings. Libra, if this relationship does not make you feel good about yourself, you don't feel appreciated, you don't feel any nurturing, this might be the time for you to really just walk away from this arrangement, because even if it doesn't break now, it's going to get absolutely wiped out with the Scorpio solar eclipse, because Mars is the ruler of that eclipse, and Mars is the planet that rules your descendant. If things are not working out, if they cannot be healed, they cannot be resolved, it might just be time for you to walk away. Your ruling planet Venus is part of this lunation because she is conjunct the sun, the luminary. So Venus is also keep in mind that Venus is going to be combust the sun. And this is why I'm encouraging you to bring up your issues now, while Venus has some dignity, because she's transiting your sign and you are ruled by Venus. When Venus is combust the sun, you're not going to feel as beautiful, as desired, or wanted. So all those negative feelings are going to come up later on. You might as well use this opportunity while you're still looking beautiful and hot with Venus in your sign. Whenever Venus transits our ascendant, people want to be around us and people find us very attractive. So Libra, my advice to you is use this energy to resolve your issues, heal your Chiron wounds in your relationships while Venus still has some power. If you haven't listened to the beginning of this video, I suggest that you go back and listen to the introduction, because there's a lot of information that really pertains to you, Libra. You are opposing this lunation, so this is very much about you. Listen to the whole introduction, and if it doesn't make sense, and you need further guidance, I suggest that you book a reading with me at rachel-mayo.com. Scorpio ascendant, sun or moon. This full moon is happening in your 6th house. This is where you're going to have endings, culminations, and perhaps some new beginnings. 6th house rules over our daily routine, what we do for work. It rules over our health, our diet, and our exercise regimen. The 6th house also rules over our co-workers, and our co-workers are not our friends. They are just co-workers, associates, or acquaintances. Your co-worker could essentially become your enemy as a result of a competition, competing for higher wages, competing for favor with the boss, competing for overtime. So you always have to be careful with those relationships. So some of you may have experienced something which was unpleasant and perhaps hostile in your work environment, and it's beginning to really affect you on an emotional level. If these are the issues that you're dealing with, this might be the time that you decide to quit your job and perhaps sue your employer. And if you're the person that's bringing this toxic energy to your job, perhaps your employer will release you at this time. So it all depends on what's really going on in your chart. And for those that have been dealing with health issues and for those that have been dealing with a health issue that has not really been going well, and you're feeling really sick at this time, your illness might be exacerbated at this time, and it might be time for you to seek alternative treatments. If you have bad eating habits, or perhaps you smoke or you drink too much, this is the time that the issues or the results of your bad behavior are going to come up at this lunation. You'll be forced into dealing with these issues. You can no longer look away. You can no longer ignore these issues. They must be resolved through medication, therapy, or some other type of treatment. Or perhaps some of you will decide to revamp your eating habits and start to diet and start exercising. All those are positive things that you can do to heal the body, and improve your improve your health. So some of you will need healing in health, others will need healing with the relationships that you have with your work environment, or just with your daily routine. Your ruling planet Mars is aspecting this lunation by a sextile aspect. As a matter of fact, Mars is in a grand air trine. Mars is sextiling the Sun. Mars is also trining Saturn, and they're forming this harmonious configuration called a grand air trine. So if things are really not working out and you've tried everything to heal the issues in your sixth house, take advantage of the energy of this. Take advantage of the energy flowing in this grand air trine. Your ruling planet is very powerful at this time because he is about to go retrograde. Mars is going to go retrograde on the 30th of October in the sign of Gemini. Scorpio, you might feel this lunation very intensely and personally, simply because we're already in the eclipse energy. You are going to be hosting the solar eclipse that's happening at the end of the month, and your ruling planet is also going to be changing direction. So you might be feeling a lot emotionally this time, on top of all the other things that have been going on, the squares between Saturn and Uranus. All these things are affecting you. So if you need some guidance, I suggest that you book a reading with me so that you can find out how this solar eclipse is going to affect you. After all, you get this powerful energy happening in your sign, and you get this energy of eclipses every 18.5 years. So this is really major for you, and you'd really benefit from a solar return reading if your birthday falls around the 25th of October, a few days before or a few days after. And lastly, Scorpio, if you haven't listened to the introduction part of this video, I suggest you go back and listen to it, because it will help you understand the overall energy of the Aries full moon. Sagittarius, ascendant, sun or moon. This lunation is happening in your 5th house. This is where you'll have endings, culminations, and perhaps some new beginnings. Sagittarius, you are a fire sign, so that means that you are sextiling this lunation and also trining the lunation. This is positive and supportive energy on both sides. So it's very likely that you will experience this lunation in a positive way. But however, we have to keep in mind the conjunction of Chiron. Chiron is asking us to face something in our 5th house and heal it, so that we can move on into our future. So this could have anything to do with issues surrounding your creativity, your talents, your small business, your children. For others, this could have to do with healing issues in your romantic relationships or your entertainment. Perhaps you're dealing with a gambling addiction, or spending too much money on entertainment, or in other situations, perhaps some of you are dealing with issues of infertility that make you very insecure, that make you feel less of a woman or less of a man, because you have to deal with this injury and this scar of infertility. And it's coming up at this lunation and it's dredging up all these feelings of resentment and perhaps a bit of shame and disgrace. And for others, it could have something to do with issues to do with gambling. Perhaps you have a gambling addiction and it's really bringing a lot of disruption in your relationships. Or perhaps you gambled away your kids' college fund and this information is being revealed at this time. Sagittarius, the 5th house, is a very sensitive area to have a full moon conjunct Chiron, because it could literally be dealing with very, very personal issues. If you haven't watched the beginning of this video, I suggest you go and watch the whole introduction, because some of the things which are going to be highlighted and happening after this lunation could actually be the healing, could actually be in the air, could actually let you know of the area where you can find some healing. So go back and listen to the introduction. Your ruling planet Jupiter is not really involved in this lunation. He's still transiting the sign of Aries and still trying to bring joy in your 5th house area. He is transiting retrograde and is going to go back into the sign of Pisces, where he is exalted, and unfortunately he will be squaring your sign. So if you have anything at 28 degrees of your sign, you are going to feel this square intensely. Not to worry, because Jupiter squares can actually still be positive, and after all, he rules your sign. So Sagittarius, there is some really positive energy at your disposal at this lunation if you take advantage of it because of the sextile aspect and the trine aspect. However, this all depends how all these aspects are affecting your own personal chart. So if you need some further guidance, I suggest you book a reading with me at rachel-mayo.com. Capricorn, Ascendant, Sun or Moon. This full moon is happening in your 4th house. This is the area where you're going to have culminations and endings, and perhaps some new beginnings. The 4th house is an angle house. So whenever we have an event on an angle, it activates all the other angles. So whatever comes to a culmination or an ending as a result of this Aries full moon, it's possibly going to affect every area in your life. The 4th house is the most sensitive angle in our chart. It's the most sensitive simply because it's at the bottom of our chart. It's where we're most vulnerable. It's where we are naked. So when you have a lunation at this point with conjunct Chiron, it can feel very, you can experience this very intensely and very emotionally. Capricorn squares Libra and Aries, so you are going to be pushed into taking some type of action as a result of whatever ends at this lunation. The 4th house rules over our mother, our home, our ancestors, our deep hidden emotions, our resentments perhaps towards our family and our ancestry and our ancestry. The 4th house is also where you can find some of our secrets. Secrets here could be about how we feel about our family, our resentments, or it could be family secrets. Secrets that have been kept from you for a long time, or secrets that you discovered and they wounded you somehow. Perhaps there was some type of incest in your family. Or perhaps you've just discovered that you are, after all, adopted, and you've kind of always sensed this, but you didn't know, and now you know the truth. Or it could be some other type of hidden truth that comes up at this time. So these issues are going to be brought up, to be discussed, to be resolved or ended. And if it's a personal issues, personal insecurities, this is the best time for you to go and seek help through therapy and deal with these wounds and pain so that you can heal, so you can get some healing and start a new page in your life. So Capricorn, if you have aging parents or grandparents, or perhaps anybody that's sick in the family, this is the time that they will transition into another existence, because after all, this is a full moon. It's a very physical full moon, so it will be seen and it will be felt. So perhaps some of this pain you're feeling is as a result of the losses. Your ruling planet Saturn is still squaring Uranus. That is an ongoing square that is actually beginning to dissipate. So you're still feeling that square because because it's almost exact this month. Capricorn, if you haven't listened to the beginning of this video, I suggest that you go back and listen to the whole introduction, because perhaps there is another aspect that is happening after this lunation or during the lunation that is going to actually be the source of help or resolution that you need in order to get through this very difficult period. And if it's still confusing and you need further guidance, I suggest that you book a reading with me at rachel-mayo.com. Aquarius, Ascendant, Sun or Moon. This lunation is happening in your 3rd house. This is where you're going to have culminations, endings, and perhaps a new beginning. The 3rd house rules over our immediate environment. It rules over our siblings. It rules over communication. It also rules our small devices, our gadgets, whatever it is that we use in our daily routine, or or daily in our life to facilitate communication. So that means it could also rule your vehicle, because you need your vehicle in order to drive around in your neighborhood. The third house is the house where we make an effort. This is where we apply effort in order to achieve something. So it is the area where we learn skills. It's an area of speech. It's an area of language. The third house also rules over our thought system. How are you speaking to yourself? You're going to be dealing with issues surrounding any of these topics. The third house also rules over our siblings and our neighbors. So if you've had ongoing issues with a neighbor, issues that are somewhat toxic and make you feel very wounded and insecure, perhaps you even want to move out of your neighborhood as a result of the fractured relationship with your sibling or a neighbor, this is the time that these issues are really going to be brought to the surface, and you're going to have to make some perhaps tough decisions to deal with these issues, or perhaps find a resolution because Saturn is transiting your sign, going retrograde, and trining Mars in Gemini, who's also trining the Sun. So this is a grand air trine. You are part of it. So this gives you some saying power. Perhaps through this grand air trine, you will find a resolution that will bring stability in your relationships. If you have not listened to the beginning of this video, I suggest that you listen to the whole introduction, because there is information that could be quite helpful if you're using it to evaluate how this full moon is going to aspect you personally. This full moon could actually be quite positive for you, Aquarius, if you take initiative, take advantage of opportunities to heal your wounds in regards to third house issues. Your ruling planets, Saturn and Uranus, they are in a square. This square aspect has been an ongoing aspect, which is going to come close to exact this month, and then it will start separating. This energy is dissipating and is going to start releasing some of the blocked energy that you've been feeling. All the fixed signs have been going through a lot and are going to actually continue having major transformations in their life. So if you need further guidance, I suggest you book a reading with me at rachel-mayo.com. Pisces, Ascendant, Sun, or Moon. This full moon is happening in your second house. This is where you're going to have endings, culmination, and perhaps some new beginnings. The second house rules over our self-esteem. It is the house that rules over our earning ability. How do you support yourself? How do you support your family? The second house also rules the family that we make with another person. This is the family that we choose to make, not the family that we're born into. So perhaps you've been friends with someone for a long time. They're so close to you, perhaps even closer than your own sibling, and you've come to regard them as family. The second house also rules over our mouth, what we put in our mouths and what comes out of our mouth. The water signs are not going to really feel this lunation intensely, simply because your sign does not communicate with Aries or Libra. So this full moon will really affect you depending on what you have in the fire signs and the air signs, because these are the signs which are being activated at this lunation. So if you haven't listened to the introduction of this video, I suggest that you go back and listen to the whole introduction, because you will be armed with extra information. You can take these aspects and see if they're actually affecting your own personal, if they're actually affecting your chart. Since the second house rules the mouth and the face, perhaps you have a Chiron wound on your face or something to do with your speech. So perhaps you have a Chiron wound with self-esteem. Perhaps you're not very confident in how you look. Some of you could have been told that you were ugly from the time that you were young. You've adopted that belief, and this is how you think about yourself. And perhaps there'll be an incident that will happen at this full moon that is going to really touch your Chiron wound, and this is time for you to deal with, it could be time for you to deal with the source of that wound and find some healing. For others, it could have something to do with your earning ability. Perhaps you're unable to earn a living because you're disabled and you have to rely on other people's money in order to support yourself. There could be issues surrounding other people's money. Perhaps the person that is supporting you can no longer support you, and now you're wondering, how am I going to support myself now that this source of income has ended? For others, it could be a way of earning money that ends at this lunation. Perhaps issues of insecurity, low self-esteem have been affecting your ability to earn a living, and perhaps the people that you're working with have noticed and don't want to be around that energy. Perhaps they will end a contract with you. This is time for you to deal with your issues. This is time for you to be around people that make you feel good about yourself. It could also be time for you to look for a way of earning a living where you feel appreciated and you feel good about yourself. Your ruling planet Jupiter is going retrograde in the sign of Aries. This is good news for you because you get another chance to have Jupiter in your sign where he is exalted. So perhaps if there's something that you didn't complete when Jupiter was transiting your sign, you get a second chance. You get a second chance to really complete whatever it is that you were working on. Something has to do with you personally, and maybe when you do improve that situation, you're going to feel better about yourself and improve your self-esteem as a result. Now, Neptune is involved in this lunation because he is squaring Mars, who is the ruler of this lunation. Mars is currently transiting the sign of Gemini and is stationary retrograde. Mars is going to go retrograde in Gemini on the 30th of October. So this energy of Mars squaring your ruling planet, Neptune, is going to go on for pretty much most of the month and perhaps into the new year. Mars is staying in the sign of Gemini altogether for about 8 months. So if you haven't watched my video on Mars in Gemini, I suggest that you go and watch that video because he is going to be squaring your planet for most of his stay. So this is going to affect you personally. Go back and listen to the introduction of this video to find out what I said about this square and about all the other aspects going on during this lunation. Take that information and see how it relates to your own personal birth chart. And if you still need further help, I suggest that you book a reading with me at rachel-mayo.com. If you like the content of this video, please hit like, share, and subscribe. And yes, I'm still running the contest for a free 30-minute solar return reading with me over Zoom or Skype. So if you want to be a part of this competition, hit subscribe. Make sure your subscription is visible because I will look for your name in my analytics, and this is how I know that you've subscribed. Share this video and like this video, and also leave me a comment in the comment section of this video saying free solar. You can also leave a comment telling me how this full moon in Aries is aspecting you. I answer viewer questions promptly.